What's going on, everybody? My name is Noah Harbuck, and this is another episode of People in Politics. And today we have a good friend of mine, Eric Wilson, Mayor Eric Wilson of Forsyth, Georgia. I appreciate you joining me today.
Glad to be on with you, Noah. It's quite an honor to be your first interviewee. I know you had your first show last week, and this podcast is new to me, this idea, but I love it. I like the theme, people in politics. I think it's going to be great. I'm glad to be your first interviewee.
Thank you. And I've been telling everybody, and I explained on my first show, this is just something God's put on my heart. Of course, I love my family. I love Jesus. But after those two things, He's given me a heart for politics and especially people. I love dealing with people every day. That's why I'm an insurance agent. I love helping them as much as possible. Most of the time, it's just saving them money. But in case they do have emergencies or claims, I'm able to be there and guide them to get their house fixed, get their car fixed. So that's why I started this. And I started it because I have the honor of being a friend of yours, and I get to see you every day, or not every day, but every week practically. And we talk on the phone, we talk in person. We have a personal relationship, and a lot of people, and 99% of people don't have personal relationships with their mayors. So I'm glad that we are friends, and I've known you for a while. And what I want to get into is a little bit more personal with you. So, my first question is, what got you into politics?
So that's a good question. So very similar maybe to you, I've always kind of had an interest in politics. So I think maybe God was pointing me in that direction too from an early age. I remember in school running for different offices and getting elected to some and maybe not getting elected to others. And then when I was, I was just always interested. I was always around it. I grew up in South Georgia in Brantley County, a little town of Nahunta. My family farms down there, and I grew up down there. And I remember as a kid, I loved election nights. I would get in a notebook, and I would go to the courthouse, and I'd take down the numbers. And I was always interested in who was winning and getting to know the politicians and what was going on in the community. It just always fascinated me. And I think the title of this podcast really says it, People in Politics, because the two are so closely intertwined. I mean, politics is about people. And I often tell people, if you don't have a heart for people, then you're not going to be successful in politics, because the success in politics is about knowing and understanding people and having a genuine interest in helping somebody, because that's really what it's about. And people know if you're genuine with that or not, and you certainly are, and that's what makes you so appealing and such a good friend, is that you do care about people, and it's an earnest concern about people.
So when somebody asks me about the mayor of Forsyth that doesn't know you, I describe you as Eric can be mayor for the rest of his life if he wants to. He's such a great person, such a great mayor. You've been such a great mayor for us, and you're in your third term.
That's right.
You're in third term. There's no term limits for the Forsyth mayor. We're a small community. I don't think there's really a need for term limits. But before you were mayor, you were city councilman.
That's right.
How long were you? Just one term, or?
So I served 6 years. I was in my halfway through my second term when I decided to run for mayor. So I actually resigned as a city councilman so I could run for mayor, and I did that, and fortunately was successful, and have been able to. Now I'm in my third term, and I've been blessed. I've served with some great council members. We've had, and I tell people that's a big part of the success of a mayor or a city government is the team. And we've really got a good team of the council. We don't always agree on every single issue, but we know how to disagree with each other. We know how to be respectful of each other, and I think that's so important in a city government. So I've been blessed in that regard my whole time as mayor. I've had very little change, in fact, and this year was the most change we've had. Due to Councilman Lawrence's death and Councilman Stroud moving to Colorado. So we really had not had much change on the council in the first 2 terms that I served.
Good. So I agree with you. We've had a great city council for a very long time. We have one currently. And I actually explained that in my first episode that I always wanted to run, but I wasn't going to run against somebody that was up there currently.
Right.
And as you know, 3 open seats came up
That's right.
last election. And I think you were up for election, and then I decided to run. And I had told you I was interested in running. I actually sat down with Julius and we had lunch and we discussed it. But I don't know why I felt led to pick seat 5, which I ended up running against Chuck Wilder.
That's right.
And I'm so glad I got to meet Chuck because he is such a great person, human being, minister. And I wouldn't have wanted to lose to anybody else but him. How has the new group of councilmen, we have Josh that just started, we had Chuck that just started, and Miss Allen?
I think they've worked very well and have really picked up really fast on the city government and kind of the needs of the citizens and what their role is as city council members. And there's always a little bit of a period, where you got to spin up and learn about your new role. But I think they've come in with good skill sets and from their work experience and their personal lives and all of that, and they've brought that into the city and they've learned about city government and really have dived in and taken an interest. But back to talking about your election and Councilman Wilder, it's so great when you have 2 great people to choose from, and that's really what the voters had in that race. And I think that's good when we have good people offering, and the voters can't fail when they have 2 good people. So really, I think that's a testament to both of you.
Yeah, we So let's go back a little bit in your life. So you said you're from South Georgia. What city?
Nahunta, so Brantley County.
Brantley County.
Nahunta is between Waycross and Brunswick on Highway 82. If you're on Highway 301 going south, it's between Jessup and Folkestone. So way down on the edge of the Okefenokee Swamp, flatlands, no clay down there, white sand.
What's the high school?
It's Brantley County High School, and we were the Herons.
I was about to ask.
The Blue Herons. It was an interesting mascot, but because of the swamp and all of the herons down there, the superintendent years ago, when they built one high school, they used to have Hoboken as the other city in the county. They had a Hoboken and Nahunta High School. They brought them together and with Brantley County High School, and the superintendent at the time, Ms. Mabel Moody, she just thought the heron was a graceful bird, and I'm not sure that was what you wanted for your football team, but anyway, that's what they came up with. So.
Well, we certainly have a really good football team in Forsyth at Mayor Persons. So a lot of people, I went to Mayor Persons, graduated in 2014, and when you told people from out of town you went to Mayor Persons, they said, "Is that a Catholic school?"
Oh, wow.
And I had to go through and explain, no, the land was donated by 2 sons. Their mom was Mary. So Mary Persons.
Well, Mary Persons is known statewide. Growing up in South Georgia, we knew about Mary Persons. Dan Pitts was known, of course, statewide. And even still going around talking to other mayors and visiting places throughout the state, people are very familiar with the legacy of Mary Persons High School, and we got a great tradition here, and they produce a lot of great students.
Yeah. The and Dan Pitts actually has somebody, John
Walton.
Somebody created a movie.
John Walton.
Walton.
He calls himself John Claude. Yeah.
John Claude, yes. Yeah. John Walton created a movie about Dan Pitts, and he's releasing it February 1st, was it?
It's some date in February. I think it may be the 1st.
So if you're in Forsyth, just look up the date for the Dan Pitts movie. It's definitely going to be worth going and watching, because like Eric said, that is a tradition.
That's right.
I actually had a friend in high school had a tattoo of MP on his shoulder. So
Okay.
it's a tradition. It's a hardcore tradition.
It definitely is. I
Uh,
learned that very quickly when I moved up here, and it's a tradition that I'm proud to get to support, and I enjoy going to the ball games and supporting the Mary Persons Bulldogs.
good. And going back to your story about how you loved going to elections and election night. I was brought up basically the same way. You know, my grandma's been the chairman for some time of the election board, and my parents would always work the elections. And those nights I would go up to the courthouse, and I didn't know what was going on. They just told me to do stuff, and like I am with a lot of things. I call myself a gopher. Go for this, go for
Right.
that. Um, and just growing up, mom and dad they would take me to Atlanta to the Capitol, uh, and to go view everything. And I was actually a page for Robert Dickey, or first Jim Cole, then Robert Dickey. Um, have you? I know you've spent some time up in Atlanta. Have is there any? I know you're on a board. That's what I want to get to. You're on a few boards, but the one I think is probably the most interesting to me is the post board, which you got appointed to last year. Was it
That's
last
right.
year?
Yeah,
And
last
tell
year.
us a little bit about that. What you do with that?
So it was a little bit unexpected. I got appointed by Governor Kemp to serve on the POST, which is Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, and that is the group that is responsible for setting the training requirements for all police officers in Georgia. And I'm proud to say that at my first meeting, I had nothing to do with it, but at my first meeting, we increased the hours significantly. We were way low on our hours for entry level police officers in the state of Georgia, way behind other states, and we doubled the number of hours for police officers. So I was proud to get to vote on that at my first meeting. And we have a couple of committees, and I actually serve on the Probable Cause Committee. And the
Mm-hmm.
Probable Cause Committee gets to evaluate police officers who have had infractions and are up for review to see if they're going to keep their certification or maybe if they're going to have some sanctions. So we have a few hundred of those, unfortunately, to review every quarter. And I serve on one of the committees, and it's a real honor. And it's something I certainly don't take lightly because
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with people who are going to be entrusted with serving the public
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in the state, wherever they happen to be a police officer or a sworn law enforcement officer. So it's definitely something I'm honored to be able to serve on. Um, a couple of other boards that I'm proud to be able to serve on is the MEAG Power. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Forsyth is a MEAG city, Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia, and I don't think we've ever had a board member on it. And I had set my goal to become a board member. I wanted to help serve. There are 49 governments that participate, and there are 9 board members. So I ran 3 years ago. I'll be up for re-election this year to that board, and was fortunate enough that the other cities elected me, and I get to serve on that board. And it impacts our city so much. You know, people don't. A lot of people think if you buy your power from Georgia Power and resell it or something, but the city actually, through MEAG, we own parts of the power plants
Mm-hmm.
around the state. Like Plant Vogtle, we have an interest in Plant Vogtle. Um, and so that's very important to our city. It enables us to do a lot of stuff. Our enterprises enable us to do a lot of stuff as a city. You know, when you look at electric, water, and sewer, those things that we collect money on, we're able to keep property taxes low and still be able to be rich with services, do
Mm-hmm.
lots of things, you know, like park improvements and those things that we've talked about. So that's an exciting board, and I'm privileged to serve on the GMA board, the Georgia Municipal
Mm-hmm.
Association. So, you know, I stay busy with a lot of these boards, but I think it's so important to keep the city connected and to keep us out front and to make sure that we're in touch and that we're learning everything that we can so that we can be better in the city of Forsyth. So that's why I enjoy serving on those boards and representing the city
Uh,
on those levels.
I'm glad you went into the other boards that you were on because I was going to ask you that next. But out of since you've been mayor, what's been your biggest accomplishment? What's been your favorite accomplishment?
Oh gosh, we've had a few. Of course, one of the biggest things we did was to build a new city hall.
Mm-hmm.
When I came into office, within a few months, we started talking. Janice Hall was the city manager at the time, and we started talking about the need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the building that we were in at that time was the Scoops building,
Mm-hmm.
what was now Scoops. We've been there a long time. There were some issues with that building, but of course, you have to fix issues. That's not a reason enough to move.
Mm-hmm.
But we were kind of confined with the space there,
Yeah.
too. We didn't have a lot of space. And the parking was a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of thought that it would be better to have retail on the square rather than government,
Yep.
and allow that parking to be used for retail businesses, people that are collecting taxes, making payrolls, and doing those things to support our community. So when Janice and I sat down, she was like, "Well, Mayor, we've got to do something to this building, or we've got to do something about City Hall." We talked about moving to the old City Hall building where the fire station used to be, across from Castleberry's, and we even talked about making that the City Hall, but there were so many limitations there. There's no parking. There's the building's not big enough. A number of things.
Might be smaller.
Yeah, smaller. So I said, let's think big. What if we go to council and talk about building a new city hall? And that was a pretty ambitious idea for my first year as mayor. But Ms. Hall, she was like, well, okay. So we did. We went to city council, and council bought in, and we were off and running. It took us about 6 years from concept to actually getting it done, from the idea to actually getting it done. So it takes a while when you do things.
Yeah, I think it's a great location. There was something there before. It was always people were in and out, or it was a gymnastic place. That's what I remember it as. But before that, it was a gas station or a car repair place.
Yeah, it had been several different things through the years, and it had been a grocery store. It had been, I think, Farmer's Furniture maybe at some point. It had been different things, and we had talked to Mr. Ingram. He owned that property when we first started talking about building the city hall, and he wasn't interested in selling. And so we kind of went about a second plan, and we were looking at building at a different location where the city owned property that I don't think would have been nearly as optimal as the location where we are. And fortunately, as we started moving along with the process, Mr. Ingram came back and approached us and said, I think my spot is the perfect spot for the city hall, and I'm willing to sell it to the city. So council agreed to buy it, and we went forward with that plan. So that's what we did.
And then we'll talk about some current projects that we got going on. I know we got a new park, we're redoing the park and new pickleball courts and basketball courts. Tell us a little bit more about that area, because I know we had to get a grant to get all that, or we didn't have to, but it helps that we got a grant for that.
Absolutely. It always helps when you can get a grant, or you can get resources from outside to help with projects like that. So that's something we actually have been working on for some time too, and it's part of a bigger project of upgrading all of the parks in the city. So we started over there at what's traditionally called Country Club Park, and that property where we're doing this expansion off of Ensign Road had been deeded to the county many years ago. People who grow up here knew that was where you played ball. That was the recreation park before they built the park across the interstate.
There was a BMX track there before too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was I've got ran over there by my older brothers, so
okay, so
I do remember that.
Well. All right, so this was kind of part of a philosophy that I have and council has, is that parks are so important to a community. Having green space and having place where you can walk or recreate or play tennis, or in this case pickleball, basketball, those types of things are so important because it builds a sense of community, and people want to live where there are amenities like that. And that I think that just helps with economic development. It helps with community development when you invest in your parks and green spaces. So we started out early in my first term as mayor and did the splash pad. And we did the pump track and the stuff for the skateboarders, and that's been popular. A lot of people use that. And so we wanted to expand the park, but we didn't own the property. We had deeded it to the county.
Mm.
And when we deeded it to the county, I say we, this is many, many years
Yeah.
ago, way before I was on the
Kansas
council.
City.
So when the city is deeded to the county, there was a revert back clause that if they ever quit using it for recreation, that it come back to the city. So we approached them and they were like, no, we still use it for some things, for practice and stuff. But anyway, so we kept working at it and finally came to an agreement, and the county agreed to deed that property back to the city. So we were able to do the expansion. So we're having 16 pickleball courts. They're very near completion. And we've got a pavilion out there, a very nice pavilion. The Rotary Club, local Rotary Club, has donated over $100,000 to build a second pavilion that we'll name for them. We put a small amphitheater. Don't think like Macon. It's not huge like that. We're not going to be having the big concerts. But think about something where you might have a smaller concert or a scout event or a family reunion or a church event or something like that. It would be a good place for that. Big, nice parking lot, a new road leading straight into the golf course parking lot, which is much nicer than the existing road going into the golf course. So I think that'll provide a nicer entrance. New outdoor basketball court, and I think one of the big popular features is the expansion of the walking trail. People use that walking trail a lot at the existing park. It's going to be expanded or has been expanded, and when the park reopens, people will get to use that. And I think that's going to be very nice. New playground equipment in the old part of the park. I think the kids are really going to love that.
Yeah, the Hardbooks are excited about that.
It looks like a lot of fun, and some of the existing equipment we were able to rehab and are going to be able to keep, but we put in a nice new set, and I think that's going to get a lot of use out of a lot of families. And so the next plan is this year we're going to be working on Kynette Park and doing upgrades there. So we've had some community visioning sessions last year, and now we've engaged the engineers to start working on that. So we're excited to see how that takes shape as well.
And wasn't there, correct me if I'm wrong, was there an idea for maybe a splash pad over there too, or was it?
I think that's in the plan, yeah. So we got some good feedback on that, and we think a splash pad would do well over there. So that'll probably be added over there as well. I think the basketball court will be relocated to the other side of the park. Splash pad, kind of where the basketball court is in that area. Maybe some additional parking over there, redo the parking lot, several things that will be done. And I think it's going to be a nice addition to the community.
Well, my favorite project going on is the repaving of Montpelier.
I can only imagine.
It's been a war zone for a couple months because of all the construction and everything. But they've gotten most of the curbs down, and you can tell it's just going to be so much wider. And I know when they put the blacktop on, it's just going to be very smooth. And I don't think they did much of expanding the lanes for the high school, but I don't think it's a huge issue anyway. I think the roundabout might be a bigger problem, but that's a state issue. So we'll see what that comes to when they start doing that.
Well, we're excited about Montpelier. That's something that's been a priority for some time. Of course, was in horrible shape. The drainage was poor on it. The road condition was bad. It was too narrow. It was just not a very safe or a good road to drive on.
And the fire trucks go down that road.
Yeah.
The buses go down that road. The police go down there. I mean, that's where the county building and ours.
That's right.
Electric guys have their trucks parked right down there. So it's been very tight, but it's going to be very nice to not have to worry about when you see a big truck coming the opposite direction. You don't have to worry about getting all the way to the right.
That's right. Hopefully late February we'll get it paved and completed. That's the plan.
Good. So, late February. I'm counting it down.
Count it down. Me too.
But this is the projects are going on. They're great. I think Forsyth headed into a great direction. Thanks to your leadership and the city councilmen and women on the board.
Let me interrupt if I can real quick. And the team also includes the staff. We got a tremendous staff, and we get to sit up there and uh, you know make rules and say we want to do this and want
Mhm.
to do that. But once we do that, there's a whole team of people that take it and run with it, and they do a great job. Our city manager, Craig Mims,
Mhm.
all of our staff, all of the departments. We've really got some good professionals, and we're fortunate for a small city to have the great team that we've got.
And I'll tell you, when I know when I was gonna like Mr. Mims was when I saw. It's a very small thing, but when you see the prisoners edging the sidewalks down the highway, just small things that make the city look really nice.
Well, he's got a great attention to detail, and he
So,
gets out and rides the city and observes these
mhm.
things, and I think that's so important.
And then we also have a new fire chief and police chief.
That's right.
Uh,
Fairly new. They've been a couple of
fairly,
years now.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
time moves on pretty quick.
it
But yeah,
does, it does. And the police is, you can tell they've grown. Their force has grown. Their presence has um, grown in the city. You see them out there way more than they were before, which I think is great for public safety and just making sure the city is safe
well, we're
and
finally
response
fully
times are
staffed. We're finally fully staffed, and
good.
that makes the difference. We've been understaffed for so many years, so we're
Hmm.
fortunate. Uh,
But I think like you said, all the staff does a great job. One I would like to give a special shout out to is my friend Kimmy.
yes,
With Main Street. She has done such a great job with all the events that she coordinates on the square and around town,
she truly does.
and she loves it.
Yeah.
She does a great job at it. Like the ball drop, I wasn't able to make it, but I think I actually. I don't think I stayed up late enough for the ball drop. I think we were, I think we were in bed or looking at our phones, and I told my wife Happy New Year and went to bed.
Right.
He went to
I
bed.
understand.
So we're not big celebrators, but it's kind of exhausting having two under 3 years old. It's you have a full day,
That's right.
and then you get a little break during nap time if they nap at the same time if you're lucky. But she also does the summer concert series, which is always a great event, and any other events that you can think of. The Forsythia Festival's coming up,
Yeah. Of course,
March, and
largely, of course, the Chamber of Commerce does that,
mm-hmm,
and have for many years. They do a great job. It brings a lot of people to the community,
mm-hmm.
and the city's happy to support it in many ways. But they do a great job with the Forsythia Festival.
Yeah, and they've starting on. Is it Thursday the food trucks, or is it Friday? I think it's over at the Board of Education and Fine Arts Center. They do a car show
That's right.
with the food trucks, and they got blow ups for the kids, and that's I think it's a week in
It's
before.
the Saturday before, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
If I start saying dates, I'll get it wrong,
Yeah.
so I won't say it. But I think it's the Saturday before Forsythia Festival. So
So,
Forsythia Festival is always the second weekend of March, so it'd be the weekend before.
so that's grown. I think at the last one, that's where I started asking about the state house seat that I decided to run for, because nobody else would run when they redistrict, and we don't have Dale Washburn anymore. And unfortunately, he was great, and he'll still be a great representative for Monroe County.
That's right.
But now we have Tangi Herring, and we're excited. I mean, I lost that race just by about 1%, but
It was very close.
is very close. But I talked to you about that before. Before me and you were talking about who was going to run for that seat, and I told you I was interested. And like me at the beginning, we didn't think it was winnable.
But you worked awfully hard. You made it a close race.
Yeah, and I wish I had a little bit sooner. I wish I had just. Well, we didn't know till November, but that they were redistricting. Well, really, we didn't know until December, and then you had March to qualify. But it was a very close race, and I appreciate your support in that. Let's go to what's currently going on in Forsyth. We have, speaking of the House, we have a House bill. Is it 581,
581. That's
581.
right. It's really a combination of several bills that are kind of amalgamized to make that House Bill 581.
Yeah, I think they had really good intentions when they started it, and it just turned into what the county calls word salad.
Right.
Um, and the city's looking to opt out on that. Would you be able to share any information about that?
So we're going to go through the process, and the
Mm-hmm.
process requires several hearings. So the way the bill is designed is that all cities and counties and and school boards are automatically opted in.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you do certain things to trigger opting out, and you have to have these hearings and do all of these steps between now and sometime in March, I believe. So it's a very compressed time frame. You have from January to March to go through that process. But House Bill 581 would basically cap the property assessments at CPI.
Mm-hmm.
So the State Department of Revenue would establish the Consumer Price Index,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, each year, and that's the maximum amount that you can raise the assessed value of real estate in the city or the county. And if you opt in to 581, that is in fact in effect. And if you opt into 581, you can also pursue a floating local option sales tax
Mm-hmm.
called a FLOST. So
But you don't have to do both of them. Well, you
you
have to.
don't.
We have to opt. We have to decide to opt in, but then it would be the people voting for another sales
Pennies. So
tax.
now you go up to 9 pennies
Mm-hmm.
because we already have the SPLOST and the T-SPLOST and the E-LOST and the LOST. So you already have all these other pennies. So you would have to go to 9 pennies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it, and that money would have to be used to offset that margin. From not being able to get the increased
But it's only for
value.
people with homestead. It,
Uh,
from what I
well, the sales
Well,
tax would be collected from everybody.
I'm saying
obviously. Yeah.
back to 581
Yeah, it would be for your
the
homestead
valuation,
property.
and it's
Yes.
only for people with homestead. So people like me that had my mom help me with the loan that has her name on it, I'm not able to get homestead, so it wouldn't go for my property taxes because I don't have homestead. She has it on. This is another rule that's already in place that my mom already has it. So since her name's on mine, we can't get it on mine.
I got you. Yeah, you can
Um,
only have one homestead.
yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, and then and everybody knows the valuations increased a good bit because the state allowed for a reevaluation for all the properties. But thankfully, most of our governments, the city and the county, did what they're supposed to do and lower our millage rates.
Right.
Um,
Did the rollback to
Did
keep
the-
you, yeah. So, and if I can for just a second on property taxes, so the city's in kind of a unique position. Remember we talked about the enterprises earlier and how we're able to collect fees, and and like with the electric, we're cheaper than the competition usually.
Yeah.
Cheaper than and really there's no competition because the state through the Territory Service Act says if you live here, you're going to be on city. If you live here, you're going to be on Georgia Power. If you live here, you'll be on EMC. But if you were to look at it as competition, we would be in a position where we are cheaper than or very competitive with the other providers around. But we collect about between $300,000 and $400,000 of property taxes a year. So
it's only about 3. No, it's 2.25 mils.
It's yeah. I think we dropped it to 2 mills this year.
2 mils this year.
So it's
And
a very small.
Yeah.
It's a very small part of our overall budget when you consider our general ops budget about $11 million a year, and you're collecting about $300,000 to $400,000 in property taxes. So we decided several years ago as a council that we would dedicate that money each year to a special project. And that's where the splash pad came from, the pump track, those types of things. Each year we determine, and so far those special projects have all been recreation related. And we thought that if we could show value, because there was a point where we were saying, well, we could just zero the millage since it is such a small part of our budget. What if we just had no property tax? Of course, the concern there is what if something changes in the community, something changes in the economy, and you need a property tax and
Mm-hmm.
you've gone to zero. It'd be very hard to go back to a mill or two mills even if you've been at zero for years.
Yeah.
So we dedicated it to these special projects for the last 10 or so years. And I think the citizens see a value in it. So
Mm-hmm.
we're able to put that money into these projects. So when we talk about House Bill 581 and things that affect property taxes in the city, we're in a little bit different position maybe than the other governments in the county because we are less reliant on property taxes to support the city government. So I think it'll be interesting. Council has decided to trigger the process, and we'll go through the hearings and we'll see what the citizens say. The citizens did vote on the referendum
Mm-hmm.
for 581 for this House bill, and
I looked at the city. I think it was kind of 50-50.
it was closer in the city than it was in the county,
Mm-hmm.
so it was closer to an even split. So it'll be interesting as we hear from the citizens and kind of see how they want us to do on it. And that's what these hearings are for. Sometimes people think they don't need to come and interact with city government, but I would encourage you to come out and interact with we are your
Mm-hmm.
government. People get the idea that they're going to do what they're going to do anyway, and I hear all this kind of stuff. But, if we don't hear from the citizens about how you feel about a particular topic, then we don't know. So we kind of operate based on what we know and what
Mm-hmm.
we learn about a particular topic. But
And
I
Facebook is
always,
not the place to
no,
communicate.
no. So I always enjoy hearing from the citizens. So feel free, call us. My cell phone number is on the city website. I've always made it available. I appreciate hearing from citizens. And, that's just part of our job is to be responsive and to try to help out. So if anybody has any ideas on House Bill 581 or any other topic,
Mm-hmm.
we want to hear from them and see what way we can help. And that's one advantage of being a smaller city is hopefully we make government a little less bureaucratic and a little easier to navigate. And I get frustrated, if you have to deal with bureaucracy, and sometimes that's just inevitable, but we try to eliminate it at the city as much as we can, and make it easier for citizens to interact with their government, because that's really what it is. When we dedicated the city hall, I said, we get to occupy this building for a period of time. It may be for a long time or it may be for a short time, but every day we need to know it's a privilege to get to be here and
Mm-hmm.
work here because the citizens own this building. And we don't, we as citizens are part of the ownership,
Yeah.
but it's all of us together. And if you ever get the idea that it's yours to make a decision or whatever, then you have to remember it's all about the citizens that you serve.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I like the city does is they stream their council meetings through Facebook. It's very easy to access, and just so everybody knows, y'all's meetings are every first Monday and third Monday of the month, promptly at 6 p.m.
We try
Correct?
to be promptly. I try. I like to get started on time.
Except this Monday, it'll
That's
be
what I was going to say.
yeah, this Monday because the holiday it'll be on Tuesday.
That's right. Tuesday at 6, weather permitting. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a potential
yes.
Winter weather event coming
yeah.
again. So we'll see how that works out. But yes, so we typically meet first and third Mondays at 6 o'clock. And when there's a holiday that falls on a council meeting day, then we move to the following day, which would be Tuesday.
Okay.
So.
I think that's really about any other projects going on that you're excited about for the city, or
Just got a lot of things going on. Infrastructure doesn't get a lot of attention because it's not seen when you talk about water and sewer infrastructure,
Mhm.
but we've got a big project going on, a $30 million upgrade of our water and sewer plants. We have one water treatment plant, for those who don't know, and two sewer treatment plants. And they're very capital intensive projects and they need upgrades, and we're doing them. We secured the funds a few years ago through USDA, largely loans, a little bit of grant and then the rest loans, but a total of about $30 million. And our engineers, Hofstadter and Associates, are working on that, and hopefully we're going to see some progress very soon. And then the next step is to continue to work on the arteries. I call the plants are the pumps,
yeah.
like the heart. and then you got to work on the arteries too, the pipes that take the water to the residences and things. We've got a lot of old pipes.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the only city in that situation. A lot of cities, we're putting in infrastructure about the same time,
Mm-hmm.
70, 80, 100 years ago, and it's getting older
Yep.
and having to be replaced, and we're working on it. It's not a fast process because it is capital intensive to do that, but it's something council is conscious about and trying to work on improving infrastructure because, like I said, you don't see it, but when you turn on the water, you want it to come out, and when you flush it, you want it to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And if either one of those don't happen, then it becomes important.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I didn't. You don't realize how important water is, um, until it's gone. Because during Hurricane Helene, I had the honor to go down to South Georgia, and we were able to take supplies down there. Um, but it kind of hit me at home because you'd have these parents that had babies that they could only drink formula. They weren't breastfed, like my youngest is, and you don't have access to water. You can't feed your baby, and it's a very stressful situation. And then finding formula was another problem for them. So that's we came back up at the end of the day, and I made sure that what we needed formula and water. We were able to feed 50 people down there, hot meals. The storm happened on Thursday night or Friday morning. We went down there on Monday, and to hear people say that that was their first hot meal, um, since the storm, it just was like, wow. We take a lot of things for granted. But one other thing I wanted to ask you personally was your church momentum, right?
yes,
Y'all are building a new sanctuary, a new
yes.
campus.
Momentum's building a new church. Very excited about that. And Leanne and I have been attending there. I think she went on the first Sunday when the church started, and
Mm-hmm.
I was out of town, so I didn't get there until the second Sunday. But we've been attending there. When we're in town, we're out of town a lot on Sundays,
Yeah.
but we do enjoy the fellowship at Momentum
Yeah,
Christian Church, and are excited about the new building project.
yeah, and I've been at Rock Springs for over 17 years now. My favorite thing to see is when other churches grow. Of course, Rock Springs has grown so much. But to have a church, go into errands,
Right,
furniture
that's
store,
right.
and then are able to grow so much that they have to build their own church, so they can grow more. I love seeing that. It's not just about my church growing, but the church growing. I call
That's right.
all churches combined are the church, um,
I agree with you.
because at the end of the day, you're not nobody's going to live forever. One people die.
That's right.
That's what I thankfully. I'm an insurance agent, so I get to tell people that when
Yeah,
I'm explaining life insurance, so that sometimes helps. Um, but it's very important to be part of a community. I believe it's very important to be part of your community and part of a church. Um, that's something that's always been on my heart, is just fellowshipping with other people, especially people that are like minded.
that's right.
Because nobody wants to be around somebody that isn't like themselves. But as long as you're fellowshipping with people, um, and just having a good time, and that's what the city provides with these new pickleball courts, with the new basketball courts, which I've been down to, and I've seen them, and they look fantastic. We've actually tried to play basketball out there, but the gate's locked.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
So we're excited about that. And then, really, it's just this has been Forsyth's growing so much. Of course, the county's grown, but you start seeing these neighborhoods pop up in Forsyth and inside the city limits, because we're actually having one right down the road. But it's going to be for seniors mostly, right?
Right, that's right.
which is much needed, I think, and especially affordable homes, no matter where people want to put them. I've never been one to say no. I don't want you to build houses next to mine because I live in a neighborhood anyway. If you want to, my thought is if you want to live where nobody lives, you go out to the country.
Right.
But then you don't get to enjoy
The amenities,
the
yeah.
amenities and the low electric bills and well, I guess we're gonna have cell service soon because we'll.
That's the hope, yeah. So, we do. We really have a great community to live in. Forsyth is a good community, and it starts with the people. I mean, that's what attracted me to Forsyth when I moved here in 2002.
Mhm.
I didn't, we didn't get into that and don't have enough time on this show, but I didn't intend to stay here when I came here. I had a business at the time. We opened a store here, and I was going to come and get it going and stay about 6 months. And in fact, I lived at the KOA when I first moved
All
here,
right.
and my plan was very itinerant. I was going to get it started, hire a manager, and then move back to South Georgia. And in that 6 months, I fell in love with Forsyth. I got to know people in the community. I was invited to the Rotary Club. I was invited. I joined the Chamber of Commerce early on. I got involved with that, and just people were reaching out, and I found that this is a community that accepts newcomers and that welcomes people into the community. Lots of times, small communities get a bad rap because they say, "Oh, everybody knows everybody. It's a closed community." I think it's kind of good if you know everybody
Yeah.
sometimes because that means you care about each other, you support each other, and that's really what community is. And you
Yeah.
can choose your level of participation if you want to be very participative, or if you don't want to be as participative, then that's up to you.
Yeah.
But you got a community here that cares about you in Forsyth, and I think that's a lot of the appeal of where we live. It's a very special place, a very special geography, a very special group of people. Just all together, Forsyth is special. We talked about Mary Persons High School, just all of the deep traditions here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very special place to be.
Well, we're certainly glad that you decided to stay because, like I said, you've been a great mayor. And actually went to the chamber dinner. I think you were out of town, but and let's see, Nolan Howard won Citizen of the Year. Shout out to Nolan. Um, Definitely deserved it. But he actually mentioned in his speech, if that's what you want to call it, that back in the day, like you said, everybody knew everybody. Everybody was friendly with everybody, and these past few years, it seemed like it's grown so much that you don't know everybody anymore. And he challenged everybody to, and I think this is really good, to smile and say hey to people, even though you don't know them, just while you're out and about. So that's what I want to challenge people to do. Just make sure while you're walking through town, be friendly, smile, because a smile can actually make somebody's day. But Eric, we've actually been talking for. I told you it was going to be 20 minutes. It's almost 50 minutes.
Well, Noah, it's been a pleasure. It's always good to talk to you. I'm proud to call you my friend, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.